Yay.
Well, welcome everybody. I think what we'll do is just in essence of time and to just best use the 30 minutes we have here, let's get going, and I'll just allow people to join in as they are ready. So thank you everyone so much for your interest and for joining us for our webinar today on effective leadership and mentorship strategies for the hybrid workplace. So perhaps maybe you're joining us because maybe your organization is currently working remotely or maybe operating in a hybrid type environment. Maybe this hybrid or remote environment has impacted productivity or maybe even employee performance or career satisfaction. Or maybe even as a result of this hybrid reality, you're looking for some better solutions to better connect people, and perhaps mentorship programs is going to be your solution for that. So I am so happy that you're here, and I'm pleased to introduce to you today our guests. We have Christy Pettit here, which is our CEO and co-founder of Pollinate Networks. Many of you all know, but Pollinate does specialize in providing mentoring and collaboration programs on both local and global levels that accelerate knowledge transfer, build competencies, and amplify diversity and inclusion initiatives using our proprietary algorithm, which we're really proud of. Our programs match people to create just the right conversations at the right time to accelerate growth, productivity, and success. Also joining today, thank you so much for being our guest today, Stephanie. Stephanie Messier is Managing Director of HR à la Carte. So their team at HR à la Carte provide cost-effective Fortune 500 HR consulting services and effective recruiting strategies, all adapted to growing businesses in Canada. And part of the reason why we've got Stephanie, most importantly, on the call today is that she's recently completed some research on hybrid work environments for knowledge workers and has uncovered some really interesting key observations. So I'm looking forward to hearing about those today. So we're going to kind of have two halves to our little session today. First of all, we're going to find out about Stephanie's findings from her research, and then subsequently we're going to have Christy speak to how mentorship and mentorship programs can play a role in these hybrid work environments. So again, very casual here. If you've got any questions, throw them in the chat. Feel free to unmute and jump in. Nothing formal today, so welcome. Let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy, and welcome everyone. We decided to do a little bit of a different format today of just a half-hour discussion. And we are, as Amy said, so fortunate that Stephanie's agreed to spend some time with us today for a bunch of reasons. As Amy suggested, you know, hybrid is heavy on all of our minds because let's face it, folks, I don't know that we really have it figured out yet. I think there's a lot of thinking going into it, and Stephanie's done some thinking from an academic level, but we're also delighted to have you, Stephanie, because you have such a wonderful grounding in HR and leadership and management, and all of these things are all in the big, what the heck are we going to do about hybrid cauldron that we have in front of us and we're trying to sort out here. So we all know hybrid environments are a huge topic. We know that you've just been looking at this not only in your HR practice, which I'll get you to, if you don't mind, Stephanie, why don't you tell us just a little bit more about your HR practice, and then let's jump in and talk about some of your key findings. What have you been finding out academically and in all your research and so on around, you know, what is to become of us in this hybrid soup that we're in?
For sure. Well, thank you for having me, and welcome everyone. And yes, so I'm going to talk about our HR consulting practice. We are a small team servicing small businesses and to mid-sized business in Canada. So we're doing everything from hiring to firing and everything in between. But I also have an OD in leadership development background, and like probably many of you during COVID, everyone was probably kind of questioning themselves about, okay, what else I can do? And her whole world shifted. So I've decided to start a master. And as part of my master, I wanted to just kind of, again, just kind of evolve in my thinking on different type of, the thinking of work. And I was really interested in the future of work. Interestingly enough, when I started my master, the future of work is something that was started to be researched just mostly because of the pandemic, but it was something that many organizations started kind of revolving around, this idea of, hybrid work and how we would be transitioning from being fully, pivoting from being fully virtual and then going into hybrid mode and focusing on what it is the right kind of logistic and the right number of days and that sort of thing. So I started focusing mostly on those transition as part of my master. And actually, I will actually soon be submitting that final paper. I'm still revisiting because there's always so many new research on it. But the interesting thing about the pivot online and this hybrid is as a business, we have been virtual for 14 years. And prior to that, in my corporate world at GE, I was global. So I was essentially hybrid. And the interesting thing that I've learned from those years in my corporate world, but also in my consulting world, is virtual and hybrid and all the challenges as many of the people have been experiencing are not new. So those who have been pivoting online, they've been facing some challenges, such as, decrease in teamwork, becoming more individual, kind of, becoming amazing task masters, and just taking so much energy into make it work.
Yeah,
So
it's true. And one of the things, Stephanie, that you make me think of is there are companies like Buffer out there, Buffers, and they've been remote for years, and also writing about the fact that it's actually really hard to be remote regardless of when you started it.
Exactly.
It's still very deliberate. So to your point, lots of people been doing it, but nobody's putting their hand up and go, hey, this is a really easy thing to do. Just do it the way we're doing it.
For sure. But the thing that we need to appreciate is those knowledge workers, that knowledge workforce, those who were, they're not bound by having to run a machine or, use their kind of their technique or that sort of thing to be on site. They were like the best workforce to be able to pivot online. But for those, mostly this was new to them, but it was not new. None of that has been new over the years. So but we have to appreciate that it's been new. And still a many organization who had their people 5 days in the office and that sort of thing, it is new to them. So one of the things that I'm going to get right into spinning up into my findings. First of all, that was thing. Nothing is that, none of those feelings of, feeling disconnected or not feeling like you're working as a team, the lack of collaboration that will now start to impede the creative side of things of the business, as well as innovation. All of that is happening as a result of people pivoting online. So that again, we have to appreciate those sentiments. The second thing is the challenges that virtual teams were experiencing, such as decrease in trust, decrease in collaboration, decrease in teamwork, and then also impeding on, it's hard as a manager to hold your team accountable for the work that's being done. The thing is, organizations have started to see that there's been an increase in individual productivity. So now you have the employees, the different generation who are saying, well, why are you asking me to go in the office? It's working quite well because I'm getting all my tasks done, because we have been creating more task masters, less collaborators. The other thing too that was interesting is organizations and teams and managers are still focusing on the logistic of hybrid, on the number of days in the office, which days, the anchor days. And I know because I don't know how many clients have been asking for hybrid policy. And every time I'm asking them, what's the intent of your policy here? What do you want to accomplish out of that policy? But they're saying, well, we want to make sure people are coming on those days. Yes, but beyond that, what do you want them to accomplish? If they're going to be, doing their task in the office or being meeting back to back, are you really getting to the essence of teamwork? And often there's a lot of hesitation. They're like unsure. They say, yeah, but I still need the policy. So organizations are still stuck in trying to find their sweet spot of what's working. Then build on that. You have the different generations and preferences, right? So you have the older generation, I'll call it the experience, who are quite happy to come back 5 days in the office for the most part and say, no, we should go back to business as usual. So that's why you're seeing some of that happening. But then you have those who are in those millennial years, and we can label them millennials because they don't like this. So those in the millennials year who are in the core of their life with younger kids, older, parents, and, and very scheduled. And they're saying, well, I've done my time in the office. I know everyone, why I don't need the socialization. So I'd like to stay at home because it's easier for me and my work-life balance. But then you have the digital natives, the Gen Z coming into the workforce, and they want to have the best of everything. So I want to have part-time, but I want to have 2 days, but I want to stay home, but I want to be.
But I certainly don't want to be isolated. So I need it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So you have all those generations. So imagine like the complexity. So there's no workplace hybrid policy that will fix all of that.
Well, no, let's talk about, so you've brought up some fantastic issues. I love that you said we're starting to create more taskmasters, fewer collaborators. And I do think, what I see, and again, I don't have the visibility that you do into HR practices. I'm being more on the L&D side, but I am seeing that idea that you have of, first of all, newer managers, newer people, the fact that we all wanted, so are we creating the right kind of leaders? If you're a new leader, I would rather think, or a new manager, I would rather think this is a pretty difficult time, right? So I'm going to be a leader now, I'm going to be a manager. Where are my role models? I'm still trying to even figure out what that looks like and the roles. And as you said too, I really love how you also said about, we're trying to tame this by storming toward the policies and the guidelines.
Yep.
We're trying to say if we just get the right anchor days, all will be well and everything will move along swimmingly. But I think some of your research also, Stephanie, indicated that, purpose sort of trumps all. Why do you want to get together? What do you want this culture to look like? As opposed to, I think what I'm hearing you say is, as opposed to going off to policy making and anchor days, what are we trying to create here? And what's the right format for that? Would that be fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think now we have to start thinking beyond logistic structure, anchor days, and even the future of work labeling that I think it's really cool to talk about future of work, but it's so broad. It could be AI, it could be digitization of something. And I think we need to kind of be honest with ourselves and remove from all the labeling and really going back to, hey, what is it that we want to accomplish together? And how do we want to get there? And I don't think we've asked those questions quite yet. I know many of the employers we are supporting, they have not figured out how to get there, nor they've been asking themselves those questions. So when we get together in the office, what do we want to work together on? The other thing that is, interesting in the research, and I slightly went through this, and then I had to dig back. It's the whole socialization of the workplace. I've been part of cohort and we work virtually, but there's nothing that will replace the social aspect of work. out of that, that's where all the informal things happen, the brainstorming, the informal mentoring, the role modeling, and all that stuff. I want to go back to something you've said, and we're touching on that. It's starting. I'm feeling we're at the start of a small tsunami of managers, new managers who've been promoted during this era of hybrid and virtual, and they're ill-equipped to manage because they haven't had that informal, those role modeling, that mentoring, and all that stuff. And they're paying the price right now by developing terrible imposter syndrome. And it's hard to affirm yourself and feel confident when inside you just don't know how to, because you haven't been exposed to. And so now it's coming our way. And so I was just working on a format this morning for one, but I know there's a second and third and fourth, because it's happening. We're sensing that now this is where it's another issue. But so I think that's when we absolutely need to start asking ourselves, okay, forget the number of days in the office, is just focus on the time we are together live. And what do we want to make out of that time? And then for those who are new, wanted to onboard and that sort of thing, again, what do we want to accomplish with those folks as well, to make sure that they get that socialization, they get that exposure, the modeling, the informal mentoring, or the formal mentoring. And these are the things that the essence that are of my findings. And it seems fairly simple, but it's complex in nature as well, because it takes a lot of energy and also cognitive power and and all that, all that good stuff, to be able to show up when we've been sitting with our sweats and being projecting virtually and on screen. So
yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought imposter syndrome into this, because honestly, I've heard that so much this spring. And having done a lot of programs that support women in leadership, women in entrepreneurship, sometimes we seem to have the domain over our imposter syndrome. But I do think that is something that we're actually all still making it up. And if there's something I could say to a young manager that's trying to figure it out, there definitely is, there are some patterns around healthy relationship, that whether you're virtual or you're live, it can be real. But the reality is, we're all trying to figure this out. I'm sure there are pockets of success, and Stephanie, you'd be running into some of those. I'm running into some of those where people are like, oh, we seem to have finally gotten somewhere here. But there's a lot of still figuring out. There's definitely a lot of still figuring out. Yeah, for sure. Amy, do you want to pop up the other question? We had a second question around mentorship. So I want to hear from you, Stephanie, because you do a lot of managing or helping people with managing and mentorship as well. But how does mentorship play a role in hybrid working? I think one of the things that we just talked about, at least for me, and I'm curious to hear from you, and please others, dump your thoughts in the chat or put your hand up. For me, one of the things that I see happening with mentorships today, because they've always been about, knowledge transfer between people, and it's not necessarily just the knowledge is transferring from older, wiser to younger, less experienced, although there is a good bit of that. But a lot of what I'm seeing in terms of the value of mentorship right now is actually people normalizing their experience a little bit. So you have, I think one of the most helpful things I said to a mentee recently who's in that exact position you mentioned, trying to figure out what the heck they're supposed to be doing as a manager in a mid-sized business at this point, is we're all trying to figure it out. There's as you said, there's sort of the mastering the task. That still is a really important thing. Making sure the tasks are getting done. But what's the layer on top of that, and how do I do that? So I think some of the mentorship is very two-way right now, the going back and forth. And I'm interested in your thoughts about one of the things that seems to be emerging is yes, we do need an organizational level of an organizational level of understanding. This is how it works here. This is what we're doing. But there's also a highly individualized piece to all of this, where, you know, how I prefer to work, how I prefer to learn, how I prefer to do things. That's starting to be something. And again, kind of challenging for the young manager who's out trying to manage all these needs for the first time. But tell us what you're seeing around mentorships, around, you know, getting people organized with how do you work with people to make sure they're getting what they need in this environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to step back in a little bit because I want to talk about the experience I've had with a larger organization. I've done some work with them for probably the last few years, the last couple of years. And when they started their formal mentoring program, I think it was before COVID. And it was very formalized. I mean, mentor, finding mentees to mentor, and that sort of thing. And the one that I've done this year, where I was essentially facilitating discussion for mentors and then facilitating discussion for mentees, and really kind of the how-to and that sort of thing. It was so incredible to see that, you know, the numbers, the need for mentors and mentees, but also the you know, the relationship, because of that lack of connection and socialization and that sort of thing. So I think they started with, and I maybe like there was probably 50, and this year there was about 400, you know, mentees or mentees.
We're seeing the same thing, and people are like, you know, where it might have been before, oh, that's just extra time I can't afford. Now people are like, I really got to talk to somebody about
I need
how I'm supposed to be doing all of this now.
Exactly. But there's a need for connection, and it works. It really works virtually. I mean, I have colleagues around the world, so you know the connection and that sort of thing works. It's just now there's even more of a need to have that connection. The thing with mentoring is it's like facilitation. It's a broad word. It can be anything we want. Sometimes, you know, we're, you know, her human mind, like, you know, we attach ourselves to a word and that has a specific kind of meaning to it. But mentoring, like facilitation, like collaboration, it's in accountability, they're a broad construct.
Yeah.
And we can make it what we want to make it. And that's the essence of it. Mentoring doesn't have to be complicated. If you're working in a smaller or mid-sized organization, you don't have to have something very formal. You just need to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even more so these days.
It's so true. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head with sort of the philosophical idea around mentorship, certainly that we have at Pollinate, which is prepare really well, match really thoughtfully, and then let them do it.
Let it be.
Because what I need from my mentor is not what you're going to need from your mentor on any given day. And this is where, you know, it can be important. I want to get your thought. I know, gosh, Amy, I think a half hour is really short now that it's 11:55. And it's so interesting talking to Stephanie. Jillian, thank you, Jillian, for your question. You know, in the virtual world, boundary setting. So this comes up in mentorship, but also all of those leadership things. And I agree with what Jillian's saying here is it's back to that whole taskmaster versus collaborator thing. We also have the specter of, you know, these young managers or all of us who are trying to do things more virtually. The strong personalities can really take over the Zoom, and we've had that even in our team, you know, where we're very, very hyper aware of collaboration. Is that if the quiet people sit back, we have a very different organization than if everybody's fully engaged. So hybrid does pose some challenges that way too. It's very different collaborating on Zoom, because everybody's got to take their turn. There's no ambient sort of noise or my ability to sort of turn to you and, you know, smile, or like none of that stuff is happening, you know, in a virtual sense. And then hybrid wise, that's one of the things we've heard a little bit from our clients, concerns as they're getting their hybrid set up. It's things like, do we have enough togetherness? And when people come in, are they just actually sitting at their desk having meetings that they could have at home anyway? Comes back to your purpose thing, but say a little bit about your thoughts on, this very important collaboration issue we have.
Yeah. So Jillian, this is a brilliant question. And I hear that over and over and over again. I think for these type of situation, mentoring or not, this is where I'm going to my facilitation background. This is my expertise. For these type of situation, I always encourage people to come up with some group norms for hybrid. So, having a team norms, understanding, like in terms of, how people can contribute, how people can share, and that sort of thing. That would be one. The second one is, and as part of your group norm, you can come up with the organizational values you want to respect. So if respect is one of them, then you can attach, we want to make sure everyone has their voice and respecting the fact that, they have a voice and we want everyone to share. So that team norm, group norms will be really helpful for that. The second one is, it doesn't matter if you're small business, mid or large. I think more and more, to be able to function in a hybrid environment and to collaborate and innovate and that sort of thing, I think that everyone should be trained in facilitation skills. Yeah. Because if everyone is engaging into facilitating, everyone can be peer facilitators, and then they can facilitate the one meeting, the one engagement. That way we keep in mind some of those things as well. So these are two different ideas that I would suggest in terms of your stronger personality. So that way, if you have those norms and then you have someone facilitating that engagement, that facilitative discussion, then perhaps it's going to help mitigating those situations. I hope that answered your question, Julia.
No, that's fantastic. I love that idea. And we really, when we train mentors, that's a big part of the training. Is you're not an advice dispensing machine. You don't got to have all the answers. In fact, it's problematic if you do have all the answers. What we want to do is create a container for the discussion to happen in, and that facilitative way of thinking is definitely sort of the way that I think things are going. And I'm afraid it's 2 minutes to noon. The next time we have Stephanie back, I think we'll definitely book some more time, because definitely I could pick your brain forever and ever, for sure.
Yeah, actually, one thing for those who are wants to start engaging in facilitation, there's I'm going to actually put it in the chat here, but there's a great tool called Session Lab. And Session Lab gives you all kind of different ways to engage in facilitation. So it could be a little icebreaker initially, or it could be, how you want to work on your values, or it could be, something like, I like the exercise called the stinky fish, which is, let's put it all on the table and figure out how that's going to work. So I go and see it. They have fantastic facilitation tools that can help everyone, and it doesn't have to be mentoring and that sort of thing, but they also have some fun things for mentoring as well.
Fantastic. Well, the more we can sort of pepper our practice with things that create interest and also give us some building blocks, right? This is where I think a lot of us are feeling that, it's time to rebuild something newer that works better.
Absolutely.
And to get some feeling of solidity under people again, for sure. So I've got a couple of things that I gathered up just as a summary. So Amy, I'm thinking that one of the things that we've learned from Stephanie is purpose over policy. Stephanie, I think that would be fair to say that we've got to come up with the purpose before we start thinking about policies, for sure. That norms and normalizing are really important. So setting norms for what's a normal way for us to sort of do things. Do we go around the circle to make sure we're catching everybody, or like how do we make sure? And normalizing our experiences, that's a big thing around mentorship and things that we can do for each other to get through this time when there's going to be this group of young managers coming along who really have kind of missed out on a lot of preparatory pieces, as you said. And then I think I loved also how you said, and I think this dovetails with your advice around facilitation, and thank you for the website, is, how can we become collaborators, not task managers or taskmasters? Yes, important to get the tasks done, but how do we create the environment where people just can't wait to get back on the computer and talk to us some more?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well,
And
thank you so much
Amy.
for inviting me, and it was a
Yeah.
real pleasure. I always love talking about this topic, so.
Yay.
And
Fantastic.
thank you very much, Christy. Thank you very much, Stephanie. I appreciate your time and your collaboration on this.
Yeah, great to see so many familiar faces on the call too, and always appreciate any insights from the group. So
And
Yeah,
I'll
I
make
feel to
the
connect on LinkedIn as well, so.
yeah,
recording available to everyone who registered. So I'll be sharing that with you over the next day or two. So stay tuned.
thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.